So we got the 166 spoilers, and this is for sure going to be the end of Yuji versus Hikaruma, and it seems like Gege is landing this safely, and some stuff that I speculated about in my previous review seems to be coming to fruition, but let's get into it. The chapter starts with Hikaruma's past. We get to see a different story in Hikaruma's past, so I'm assuming this means we're going to see what happens after the ending of chapter 159, and I'll give you a quick rundown of what happened in that chapter. There's a good chance that a lot of you might have not even read that one and just skipped it because it's pretty much entirely like a procedural chapter following what Hikaruma was doing in the days leading up to the culling game. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I don't feel like rereading this chapter. I mean, I read it when it first came out and it was fine, but coming back to it now, I'm like, nah, I could probably just skim this one, right? And to be honest, I think Gege maybe could have handled chapter 159 a little better in retrospect, but it's fine because it leads to what's going on now, and what's going on now is great. It's the most interested I've been in the series since the Tengen stuff, to be honest. But anyway, in that chapter, Hikaruma is like in a trial, and it turns out that like 99.9% of all verdicts in Japan wind up being guilty. But the truly sad thing about that is it's like a real statistic in Japan. But it winds up with like this kid, I think he seems young, essentially being wrongfully convicted guilty, and I think a murder trial, maybe double homicide trial, something like that. And this upsets Hikaruma, understandably, who is set up to not really be evil or anything in this chapter. If anything, it's kind of the opposite, but the ending panel where he activates his domain expansion, at the time we didn't really know what he was doing, we thought it was just his curse technique. But he says we're having a retrial, and he has like this deranged look on his face, which made me, at least, think at the time that he just snapped, was just going to murder everybody in this courtroom. And that could also explain how he got 100 points so fast. But it's later revealed, of course, that he got the 100 points simply through self-defense, I guess, or at least the implication is, or at least that's what was implied, like defeating other sorcerers in the culling game and curses and stuff like that. It doesn't seem like he at least intentionally murdered innocent people, and I say that because he activates his domain expansion at the end of chapter 159, forcing a retrial for the wrongfully convicted young guy. And since we know how deadly sentencing works now, it basically assured that the young guy was going to go free because it has omniscience, essentially. So in theory, if deadly sentencing does have the young guy go free, then what does that mean for the defense? Since I'm assuming they're normal humans, confiscation going to be. But since the young guy was going to get life imprisonment, then it's possible that Judge Man gives like that to the defense, whoever is the opposite receiver in this case. So maybe it like forces them in the Shadow Realm forever or something, I don't know. But regardless, I think this is going to show that Hikaruma is ultimately like a good guy, because like I speculated about in my previous video, he's probably going to turn face and become like an ally of Yuji, or at least I certainly hope he does. His gavel turns into an executioner's sword. The sorcerer is aware of the evidence in the envelope before it's opened, which mentions that Yuji was not the cause of the mass murder in Shibuya, and it was Sukuna's fault. Pretty cool that his gavel's becoming an executioner's sword. I guess that's like the final form of his gavel shikai thing. Another set of spoilers, it's mentioned that if this thing touches you, you just die. It makes sense because if you're like not strong enough to overthrow the deadly sentencing domain expansion, then you should rightfully be susceptible to a one-hit kill from it, right? Meaning that like it's not going to work on Sukuna because like I said before, he could just malevolent shrine out of it, just like any other special grade probably could. So if you're wondering like, can this sword kill anyone? No. But also the fact that Hikaruma knows what the evidence is inside of the envelope before it's open is interesting because he said that he doesn't share information with Judge Man in the previous chapter. So it's possible that he was just lying there, or since there's like a special situation here with where Yuji is like admitting guilt to something that he didn't obviously do, then maybe it like causes like this special omniscience mind link thing. Maybe, but it just probably seems more likely that he just lied to Yuji about that detail. But anyway, Yuji pled guilty to the mass murder that Sukuna caused in Shibuya. So that's why his gavel's becoming a sword, because he's essentially gonna cut his head off because Judge Man gave him the death sentence. When Hikaruma was about to hit Yuji with the executioner's sword, it disappears. So I guess the Judge Man deadly sentencing thing has run its course, and it's deemed that Yuji is in fact innocent. Then he is blown away by Yuji's punch. All right, Yuji finally getting a clean shot on Hikaruma, and ends with him saying, "I'll give you the 100 points. All right, Well, that was easier than I thought. I guess it's because Yuji turned out to be innocent that it made Hikaruma have a change of mind. I mean, just on top of his, whole fight with Yuji here, it's possible that, from the start, he kind of had like this feeling about Yuji and he wanted to see where it went. And then if it turned out that he was ultimately guilty, then he was gonna be like, okay, you can have my 100 points. Because it doesn't really seem like Hikaruma is as invested in the culling game as you'd think. To be honest, he's kind of just a victim of circumstance like the rest of the marked. Well, as far as we've seen, I'm sure there's some marked ones that wanted to be marked or knew that they were going to be. We don't necessarily know the case with Hikaruma yet. In fact, we don't know any of them except Megumi's sister. And she obviously didn't want to be marked unless there's a twist and she did. But yeah, that was a fantastic first boss fight for Yuji. Really enjoyed this. Like I said, this is the most interested I've been in the story for months. Not that it's been bad, but it just, hasn't been as good as the other series I've been following. So I'm hoping that this leads to Hikaruma like joining Yuji's team with like, Akotsu, Hikari, Megumi. I think that would be pretty cool. Or if he's just like a roaming ally, that would be great as well. I mean, clearly he's not going away. He's here to stay, at least for now. And clearly Gege wants us to like this guy. So just do it, let's go. And now that Yuji has the 100 points, I assume he's going to try to meet up with Megumi again and then discuss what the new rule is exactly going to be. I mean, we know that they're trying to get Sumiki out of the game, but they have to make like a very specific rule. Like the culling game's game master, the AI, it just won't accept any rule. Hey, if you've made it this far, maybe you'd be interested in following me on Twitter. I'm pretty active on there, and I talk about all the new battle anime and manga stuff going on, all of the new spoilers, and big news and releases and all that stuff, as well as just nerd culture and pop culture and topical stuff. Maybe sometimes I'll even try to post some crappy memes, too, to liven up your timeline. But if Instagram's more your thing, you could also follow me on there, too. I'm not as active, but I definitely plan on being more active there starting next year. So yeah, please check out my other social medias. Thanks, guys. But speaking of Megumi, that's going to lead us to the next boss battle that he's currently going through. Unless Gege just decides to off-screen that, like it just happened simultaneously while Yuji was fighting Hikaruma, and then we just see the aftermath of it, which could happen, but I'm pretty sure Megumi is gonna get his boss battle as well, and Panda too. I think Panda's there. They're gonna be fighting that receipt guy. I forget his name, but he has like the long hair and he's connected to Remy some way. Maybe she's like his girlfriend. But that's pretty much it for the spoilers today, guys. Let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. What do you think Yuji's gonna do after this? Do you think Hikaruma is going to join the team? And what do you think is gonna go on with Megumi's fight? Let me know. And if you liked the video, please give it a like. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.